please welcome to the stage the founder of Magnus app, Mr. Magnus Resch.
Hello, everyone. This panel is about culture. My name is Magnus Resch. I'm working at the intersection of data, art, and technology. I'm a professor for art management, and I run an internet company, a mobile app that works like Shazam for art. You take a photo, and then the app tells you who the artist is, the price, and so on. The cultural industry is rapidly changing. Just look at the art world as an example. When I was born, the most expensive artwork that was ever sold went for $10 million. 2 years ago, the most expensive artwork sold, and it was $450 million. That's 40 times as much as 35 years ago. But it's not only that art is becoming an asset, it's also that the cultural industry gains way more attention. I give you one data point. In the US, 450 million people visit sports events, but 800 million people go to museums. So almost twice as many people go to museums than they go to sports events. This panel is about that. It's about the power that culture has on the economy and on society. I'm very glad to introduce you to one of the experts in the field. He is the president of 20 museums in France, including the Grand Palais and the Muséum de Luxembourg. 2.5 million people visit his museums every year. He's also the former director of Tate Modern in London. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Chris Dercon. Chris.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Magnus.
In my introduction, I already mentioned a famous piece, the Salvator Mundi by Leonardo da Vinci, that sold for 450 million. Last week, a show opened at the Louvre, a Da Vinci show. The Salvator Mundi is not part of it. Are you sad?
If I'm sad that one of the Salvator Mundis is not part of it, yes, because, I mean, there are many Salvator Mundis, because this painting was so revolutionary and so important that the school of Leonardo da Vinci, and after Leonardo da Vinci, there were more Salvator Mundis. But we have all reason to believe that the one you're talking about is a true Leonardo da Vinci. And when I say we have all reasons to believe, that was one of the major stakes to have this one version in the exhibition at the Louvre, which just opened to an amazing success. And not just with the public, but also with the critics. So to have the painting in the exhibition in the Louvre, that Salvator Mundi, would have been a win-win situation for all parties involved. So yes, I'm sad, we are sad, but the doors are still open, and I have all reasons to believe that the directors and the curators of the Louvre, that they made an offer to the owner or owners of this fantastic Salvator Mundi, and that there is still a way to share this work not only with the specialists, but also with the public. Because, you know, Magnus, culture ownership is not about materials or objects and about money and financing alone. True culture ownership has to be deserved and is about sharing. And I think that's also one of the reasons why Alula is going to be a gigantic success, because this is very much a project involving so many parties in so many new disciplines, technologies, and it's about sharing, it's about giving. And a true gift is only true when it continues to be given. So that's what I think matches Salvator Mundi with Alula.
This panel is about culture. Why, you've been in the culture industry for many years. Why is culture so important for society?
Culture is becoming more important for society because of many different reasons. Look, when I enter this building, I see many people who are acting alone. They go on singular journeys. They are constantly on their phone. And we know that we have to reinvent experiences. To visit an exhibition, to visit Alula is a true experience because it's a kind of collective experience. You can step in, you can step out. Culture is providing that. That's one reason. The more we are on these singular journeys via digital technologies, the more we want to have live experiences. One of the reasons why museum shops are doing so well, because they give you a true experience. They give you an experience of the museum, but there is, of course, another reason, that is that the culture today is becoming more and more important because we know that speaking about the future, and speaking about the future after the future necessarily has to imply the past. We are talking way too much today about the hyper-presence. And when I visited with many young Saudi artists and cultural leaders many years ago, Alula, I saw their enthusiasm, I felt their enthusiasm, not because of this adventurous trip by itself, but because to be present and to take that past into the future. And the more we live into the hyper-presence, the more we need culture. And culture is about bridging differences. We all know that in the most difficult times of our lives, of our societies, in conflict situations, let culture speak.
You mentioned the future of museum shops and the future of museums. What role does experience play in the future of museums? How are museum shows going to change?
Museum shows are definitely going to change, and the Alula Royal Commission and the Alula ideas are taking that already into account. That is, we do know that we will have troubles given ecological sustainability, given, transportation systems, giving mass tourism, that at some point we have to invent new technologies to make these experiences happen.
Give us an example.
An example is what we are now doing with my organization and the Louvre, is that we know that only so many people can see the Joconde, the famous Mona Lisa, in the Louvre. And what we are giving these people is an opportunity with new technologies to see La Joconde for themselves through new stories and new ways of representing it. That is, we are creating a huge room where you can actually speak to the maker of La Joconde, the painter Leonardo da Vinci, where you can speak to the model, where you can assist to all the questions which are raised by this very, very secretive smile on the face of the model. And we are doing that in a way like maybe opera and cinema is working today. That is, you will be able to see a pilot in Dubai at the 2020 World Exhibition, but also you will be able to see it maybe at the Louvre Abu Dhabi. And you probably also will be able to see it at the same time in Lyon and in Toulon. So you don't have all to come to Paris and wait for hours in line.
But I still need to go in the physical space.
The physical space is that we can use digital technologies to create stage sets like this one, and that we invite you to be part of the representational figuration of the painting. So you're not just in front of the painting, you're becoming part of it, and we call it immersive. and you can also talk back, you can ask questions, especially asking questions which even Google cannot answer.
So I can ask Da Vinci a question, what triggered him to paint that work?
Yes, and you can ask also the model if what she felt about being painted by that revolutionary master.
That's good, a new reason to go and see it again, right?
And it's not science fiction. We are not the only ones involved in it. Also Pompeii is involved in it. I know that the Royal Commission in Alula is very interested in these new technologies. So everybody is working on it, and things are going very, very, very fast. The whole reason also is to go beyond the singular experience of virtual reality, because that's still a huge issue. That is, you're sitting like in the exhibition in Paris of Leonardo da Vinci with 6 people on a chair, and you are basically by yourself. Now, the whole idea is to develop a system, technologies for a kind of collective experience, because that's, of course, the magic of going to the cinema, of going to a music, a rock festival, of going to an exhibition, that you can be alone, yet at the same time you're together with other people. And this whole idea of sharing is the basis of culture.
But it's not only in the experience that will change how we consume art, but also the creation of art will change. There are companies out there that do AI-generated artworks. An AI-generated artwork was just sold last year for $450,000 at Christie's, and it was completely computer-generated. So there wasn't an artist painting it anymore. It was a computer that used a code that was created by a developer.
I think it's very important, but we have to understand where it comes from. And I think we can bring technologies like AR, augmented reality, even further when we understand the basis. To give you one example, in Jeddah, at the end of January, we will celebrate again this fantastic festival, art festival called 2139. And I know that the curator, Maya El Khalil, she's going to present a German architect who did so much work in the 60s and the 70s with net structures in Saudi Arabia. To see these structures by this architect is understanding also what architects are doing today with computers. So please, let's leave the hyper-presence and let's combine the past, the just past, the present, and especially the future to reach beyond the future and to say something about where do we want to go in 2030. And that's the reason why I say always to my teams and my students, we have to think about anticipation. I don't think the word innovation is still working. It's too passive. It's too receptive. The word anticipation is much more productive, and that's the reason why I do think that Alula is such an important project, because it is about anticipation.
What do you anticipate for Saudi Arabia? The Ministry of Culture was just created. They have a plan, the Vision 2030. What do you see will be their key challenges?
I can only speak for culture, and I want to speak for culture. One of the key challenges is learning from the experiences in Abu Dhabi, but even also the experience in Doha, is saying, you know, we have to try to invent a new form of instituting and new forms of building and organizing museums. And I think there is a chance for this country to do that. Why is there such a chance for this country? And I mean, I'm sorry, it's in the words of Sheikh Mayasa, who once told me that because there are millions of Saudis, young Saudis, that this country has the chance to develop culture in a much more radical way and a much more sharing way than any of the countries in the region. Because the presence of these young artists, eager young people, is the basis for culture. And I can say that because I've been working here for many years, first in Abba, then in Jeddah. I've been traveling in the country. I've been working with many young artists, both men and women, who are now mature artists, and the eagerness and the fact that they represent the grassroots movement crossing through all classes of Saudi society is such a rich base to do something completely new, which does not exist yet, and which is about anticipation.
Last question. 10 years from now, where do you see Saudi Arabia's cultural scene?
I see that some of the young artists will be shown in major museums in Europe and in the United States. They will dare to use completely new technologies, but at the same time using their traditions. And I call that movement a grassroots movement, but it's about the future of tradition and the tradition of future. I think if we can achieve that in Saudi Arabia through new initiatives like in Jeddah, like in Riyadh, like the culture festivals, like in Alula and beyond, to create an idea around the future of tradition and the tradition of future, then this country and its cultural richness can be truly, truly unique.
Thank you, Chris.